And now, Backstage Wife, the story of Mary Noble and what it means to be the wife of a famous star. When Larry suddenly invited the mysterious Claudia Vincent to visit his family in Rosehaven, Long Island, Mary couldn't have been more surprised or less pleased. For she's now convinced that Claudia is nothing but a fortune hunter after Rupert Barlow's money. Not only that, but now it appears to Mary that Larry is becoming dangerously interested in Claudia. And so tonight, she has started a campaign of her own, much against the advice of her good friend Maud Marlowe, who waits in the living room as Mary answers the doorbell.
I'm coming. Just a minute. Hello, Rupert.
Mary, I can hardly believe it's you after all this time.
It was nice of you to drive over tonight, Rupert.
Wild horses couldn't have kept me at home. Not when you called. Let me tell you, I was surprised. I had an idea that you'd turned entirely against me.
Whatever gave you an idea like that?
When you left my house. That horrible day when Claudia went completely mad and tried to shoot me. And she surely would have, my dear, if you hadn't pulled her off balance. Well, after that, when you and Larry left with Claudia to bring her here, I thought my cause was hopeless.
Oh, you're quite wrong, Rupert. But let's not talk about it here in the hallway. Let's go into the living room.
Oh, I didn't realize we were still standing in the doorway.
I only hope you won't be angry with me after I've told you why I wanted to talk to you, Rupert.
How could I ever be angry with you?
It isn't so difficult. Oh, please come inside where we can be comfortable. Maud, here's Rupert Barlow.
Oh, well, good evening, Mr. Barlow.
Good evening, Miss Marlowe. This is indeed a surprise.
Really? Well, I wonder why, since I've been living with the Nobles for such a long time.
Yeah, well, I thought I'd read somewhere that you were about to be in a new play. Or did someone tell me? I can't remember.
Your information is perfectly correct, Mr. Barlow. But fortunately for me, rehearsals don't begin until late in August. So I persuaded Mary to let me stay on with her and her family until then.
Persuaded me, indeed. I begged Maud to stay. Oh, I just don't know what we'll do when she leaves us.
Oh, well, I don't expect to be so very far away, my dear. After all, your husband goes back and forth from Rosehaven to New York every day. So I'll manage to visit you pretty regularly, if only to check up on what you're doing. You see, Mr. Barlow, Mary is very trusting. She believes that all people are good and that they wouldn't dream of taking advantage of her in any way.
And you, Miss Marlowe, you don't agree?
No, I've lived too long to be so hopeful.
Oh, now, Maud, you know that your bark is always worse than your bite. In fact, you're one of the most friendly and generous people in the world.
Well, I'm scarcely to be compared to your own husband when it comes to that, Mary.
Oh, I don't know, Maud. Larry doesn't ever pretend to be clever at business things. But still...
Exactly. But still, he's usually ready to listen to anyone who wants him to believe he can make a tidy profit at no risk. Well, be that as it may, I believe I'll leave you two for a little while. I have a few notes I must finish before I go to bed. If you'll excuse me.
Why, of course, Maud.
That's quite all right, Miss Marlowe. Please don't let us keep you from your correspondence. Good night.
Oh, I won't be that long. I'll see you again before you leave.
Oh, well, would you care for something to drink, Rupert?
Oh, no, thanks. Nothing at all. Just tell me how you can stand having that old Spitfire around all the time.
Well, you mean Maud? Rupert, she's one of our very dearest friends.
Well, I must say your friends astonish me. Maud Marlowe, a broken-down character actress. And now Claudia Vincent, the woman who tried to kill me in cold blood.
Rupert, Claudia swears she wasn't going to harm you, just frighten you.
Oh, I see, with a loaded gun. And, of course, you believe this?
I don't know what to believe, Rupert. Larry believes her completely.
Oh, of course, Larry would. Claudia can be very convincing when she puts her mind to it. And, of course, Larry would appeal to her. It's only natural. But you, Mary, to think that you'd believe a woman like Claudia Vincent instead of me.
But you're wrong, Rupert. I don't believe that you ever ruined Claudia's family financially. I've told Larry that it's absurd. But he doesn't seem to be able to see it that way.
You mean he's infatuated with Claudia, is that it?
I'm afraid so. I don't know what to think of her or what she's trying to do. But I don't trust her.
You're so entirely right, my dear. Claudia Vincent is an unscrupulous woman who must live by her wits. All her life has been aimed at marrying money. She thought for a time that I'd propose to her. But I learned in time that she is nothing but a fortune hunter. If I were you, Mary, I'd keep a close watch on your husband.
You don't think she'd try to break up our home, our marriage?
No, and why not?
Well, because if what you've said is right, Larry wouldn't be wealthy enough for her. Would he, Rupert?
Larry Noble is a famous star on Broadway. He knows hundreds of celebrated people. Claudia Vincent would love to lead a cafe society life.
Well, Larry doesn't like that sort of thing at all.
No, perhaps not. But he could introduce Claudia to other people. You take my advice, Mary. If you want to keep your husband, watch Claudia Vincent. She's dangerous. I ought to know.
If only I could talk to Larry about her. But he won't listen. He thinks I'm being prejudiced against her, that I'm not being fair. I don't know what to do.
Mary, how I wish I hadn't been the means of bringing this trouble into your life. But I couldn't possibly know Claudia just moved into my home while I was in Bermuda. And I couldn't get rid of her without making a frightful scene. And you know my man Victor was away and my secretary, Julia. Oh, Julia Dixon. The one person I thought I could count on. Now even she's turned against me.
Can't believe that, Rupert. Julia Dixon loves you very much.
In the past, perhaps. Before she met this blonde young Adonis in Bermuda. Brought him back to the States, put him up in my home, mind you, in my best suite.
But who is this person, Rupert?
Well, all I know is that his name is Oliver Wilson. And he's an impudent little upstart. He helps himself to my brandy, my best cigarettes, swaggers about the place giving orders to my servants, drives my convertible about as if he owned it.
But why do you let him stay if he's as bad as that?
Oh, because Julia's starry-eyed about the chap. She thinks he's perfect. She told me in so many words that if I turned him out, she'd go with him.
Oh, Rupert, I'm sorry. I didn't know you were having such a lot of trouble.
I've been having more than my share lately, Mary. And I've missed your company so much. At least when you phoned and asked me to come here, it lifted the clouds that have been heavy about me. It's made everything far brighter.
I'm so glad. But I hardly know whether I ought to say what I had intended to say when I called you.
Well, go ahead, my dear. Whatever it is, you know, I'll understand.
It's a subject that I hate to bring up. But I think I owe it to my son to at least try to straighten out our finances. Rupert, remember some time ago you offered to return our securities? The papers Larry gave you to back up the money you were going to invest for him?
Yes, of course I remember.
Well, I've thought about it a lot, and if you're still willing to return them, I wish you would.
And you were afraid to ask me. Oh, my dear, how little you understand me. Of course you shall have them. At once, tomorrow. And I will personally stand the losses this negotiation entails. It's so little compared to what I'd be willing to do. For you, my dear Mary. Remember, this is only for you.
Rupert Barlow reaches over and takes Mary's hand as he speaks these words. She's more uncomfortable than she would care to admit, but she smiles and tries to change the subject. Meantime, in New York, backstage at the Hamilton Theater just off Broadway, where Larry Noble is starring in a play, Larry is knocking at his leading lady's dressing room door. And we hear...
Come in.
You about ready, Sheila?
Oh, it's you, Larry. I thought it was...
I know. You thought it was your sweetheart. But I just want to know if you'll come out with us for half an hour or so. I want you to meet a particular friend of mine. She's a darn good actress, if I'm any judge. And I have an idea she'd fit perfectly into your part when you leave the play to be married.
But you didn't tell me the gal's name.
Oh, you wouldn't know her, Sheila. But you told me that you'd give anything to get out of your run-of-the-play contract so that you can marry this wonderful young man of yours and go to Europe. I'm suggesting someone who might step into the part and be so good that Harold Ramsey would let you out. Do you want to do something about it or not?
Why, yes, Larry, yes, of course. It's very sweet of you, darling, to take so much interest in my love life. It rather takes my breath away.
Oh, I don't see why.
I just can't see why you've taken such an interest in me all of a sudden. Or is it this mysterious actress you've got in tow who has captivated your heart?
Larry frowns as Sheila baits him with these words, but he doesn't reply, and we wonder what will happen now with Claudia Vincent and Larry's plan for her. We'll be sure to be listening Monday to Backstage Wife, the story of Mary Noble and her husband Larry Noble, famous Broadway star.